Oh, wait, can you guys hear me? Yeah, I think you can. But it looked like
Mhm.
normally we'd hear them saying, all right, we normally hear they say, hey, recording to the cloud, but we're good. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. All righty, class. Hi. I'm almost back 100%. So thanks for bearing with me. I know it's been um, a rough week or so with hearing my voice, but thanks again. And let us hop on in. Jasmine, is there a question? Did you have a question? I'm not sure. If you do,
Yeah, I did have a quick one. I just wanted to confirm about the when the recipe says corn husk, only because I was going right to the store after this. But when the it's saying corn husk, is it still wanting the us to make it out of masa harina, or is it wanting us to use the corn husk as a shell and then pack it? Or
I'll be covering it all in the class, but
okay, okay. I
yeah,
just wanted
yeah,
to make sure if I can. I was like, I don't know where to find drying corn husk.
yeah, you do need dried corn husks. Which you should be able to find at like any type of um, I know that Walmart carries it, but also exactly Hispanic markets, Mexican markets. They are going to come in a little package, and they just look like here. I'll pull up a visual right now, but
Okay.
then we'll go into so much.
Okay,
But
so it's not like the actual ears of corn and then I save the husk.
No, however, if that's like the worst, if you have to do it,
Okay,
it can be done. Um,
guys.
but um, but I'll just pull up a quick visual. Um, uh, they're gonna be like you know what they kind of if you think about it like think about this season, right? Fall, you'll see like a scarecrow, right? Scarecrows often are made with corn husks as well. So they are yellow, pale yellow, and they're dry. You're going to have to soak them in water to make them pliable, but this is what you're looking for, right? And like I said, you can how to dry corn husks for tamales. You can, but you should be able to buy them and find them. Give a call. I would if if you've got a Hispanic or Latino market nearby, they'll definitely be going to have them because tamales are made all over Mexico and well, the Southwest and further south and in all of the Americas pretty much, which and there are tamales that are made with plantain leaves, but this is what you're going to be looking for. Those husks and you'll find them in usually, a bag that if you got like a clear bag like that, so that it stays dry. All righty. Class, we are heading to Mexico today after Spain, which I think is always kind of a funny little uh uh not funny, but in all things considered, because we think about what we just learned last week, right? With what was happening with Spaniard colonization, right? And trade routes and taking new products, right, from the old world to the new world, and the direct correlation between Mexican and Spanish cuisine. And we're going to dive into that. Chili rellenos are optional. They do not have to make those, though. If you do want to make them, go for it. The only thing that is required this week are making your mole as well as your tamales. Okay. And you make sweet tamales, tamalitos, sweet tamales. Okay, so guess what, class? The world of tamales are incredible and a few things. Now, this is a little bit of a funny joke, but again, not really. So, for those of you who may or may not know, I have been fortunate and lucky enough to be living in Mexico for the past 3 years. I started off going to Mexico as a small child, was fascinated by the cuisine back then, spicy salsas. My first restaurant cooking gig at age 18 in a professional kitchen. I was pretty much the yeah, only, one of the only English speakers. And I was working with a whole crew of Mexicans, a couple Ecuadorians. And that's how we rocked out, and I have learned so much from not just the first time I had chilequiles, having family meal with them, but tips and tricks in the kitchen. And now having the chance to actually having been living in Mexico, my I am never surprised by what I don't know, which is not just the sheer variety of beans and actually totally plant-based. We often, again, the story goes on and on. We think about these other cuisines and we see about how meat focused they are, right? We think about tacos and they're stuffed with meat. Well, guess what? When we look at true Mexican cuisine, it is really not yes, meat is consumed, but it is a very vegetarian friendly cuisine. We think about the base of corn, beans, rice, chili, tomatoes, nopales, which are cactus leaves, among squash and a many other multitude of other ingredients. But this is really what bakes up a base of a cuisine, and the what you can do with a few ingredients when we look at the variety of salsas and the depth of salsa just by whether you're making it fresh, how you're processing it, are you grilling it, are you roasting it, what's the combination of are you steaming it, are you boiling it. You can get so many different flavors from different salsas with just a few ingredients. It is just incredible. Not to mention the utilization of masa, which we're going to be making corn, okay, and going from not just tortillas, but to arepas, to tamales, to beautiful little corn masa dumplings, to panuches, to all these different forms of utilizing corn in masa. To empanadas, to quesadillas. I mean, I just ran off 8 different forms of we can utilize masa right there, and you've got not to mention all of the fillings and toppings that we're going to go in. So obviously, as always, there's never enough time to talk about all of this, but I am going to try to bring the best that I can to you, and we will continue this conversation in the study hall, and we can dive deeper into this. But as we start this idea, growing up and living in the US, right? We think of, I always thought of a single tamale. Well, guess what? A single tamale is not a tamale, it is a tamal. Okay. Tamales are plural and a singular tamal is one. It's not a tamale, as I made that mistake. All right. So just a heads up. All right. Although you'll often see and people calling it in the States, one single tamale. Okay. We've got also, that kind of funny connection, understanding and learning languages, right? And miscommunication, and let's not even get into the world of chilies, okay? Chilies, right? When we look at, we've been talking about throughout these past 12 weeks, tomatoes and how tomatoes are kind of like, oftentimes we think of the face of Italy, right? What would Italian cuisine would be without tomato sauce? Well, remember, where did tomatoes come from? Right? The Americas. Chilies, also the Americas. Where would so many cuisines be without the elusive, delicious, spicy chili? Okay, I'm a huge fan of chilies. I love spice. I love the notes that it brings from raisin-like to sweet to spicy to floral to fiery to front. Where does it hit? Where does your spice hit? In the front of your tongue, in the back of the mouth, on the sides of your tongue. Different chilies, different formation are going to bring up different heat levels. Now, when we get into this idea of chilies, all right, I found this fascinating as well. Well, guess what? You've heard of a jalapeno, right? Well, that's a fresh jalapeno. What is a jalapeno called when it's dry? What about a poblano pepper? You know what a poblano pepper is, but what's a poblano pepper called when it's dry? So lo and behold, guess what? Trickery is at its finest. So I didn't know back in the day that guess what? Well, a poblano pepper, when it's fresh, is a poblano pepper, but when it's dry, it's called an ancho pepper. Okay, so you basically have 2 different names for both a fresh and a dry chili. Same pepper, different form. All right, let me pull up a little visual so you can get a clue of this. All right, and don't worry, It's going to take time to grasp it all. But the more you get into it, the more you're like, oh yeah, that's an ancho. Oh, that's chipotle. That's guajillo. Okay. And everything starts to make sense, but it takes a while to get there. Okay. And then even understanding how and when to use certain chilies, because certain chilies are going to be used for smokiness. Some certain chilies are going to use for heat. Some chilies are used for color. Okay. So let me pull this up. This is just a quick little visual here. I think this will do the trick. Yeah. All right, cool. Pull this up, share my screen, and get going. Yeah, I know, Bree, trust me. So was I. I was like, what? I had no idea. Whole time I thought they were all different peppers. Yeah. Well, the more you know. Like I said, class, you will never stop learning in this industry. I mean, and if you do, you're not looking hard enough, is what I would say. All right. So here's just a tip of the iceberg, or a tip of the chili. All right. We can see we've got serrano, also known as chile de árbol, jalapeno, morita, or chipotle. Okay. The poblano for chile ancho, the manzano to Cascabel, or Anaheim to Colorado, Mirasol de Guajillo. Okay, here's another, oopsies, choices. Here is, no, this is not what I wanted, but this will work. Let me get this up again. This is the one I want to show you because I think the visual side by side is great. There we go. All right. So, oh man, there we go. All right. So as we can see, top jalapenos, right? And we know that those jalapenos can be green. They can go then start to mature. Also, remember, all of your chilies are going to start off as green. And as they mature and ripen, they also transform into different color. Just okay. So the chili is wild. Okay. And you think about when selecting, for example, a green jalapeno versus a red jalapeno, or your, Thai bird chilies from week 2, right? Green Thai chilies eventually become red Thai chilies. They are not separate chilies. It just has actually matured and ripened. And what you see with that maturation is, yes, sweetness, but also intensity of heat as well. Okay. So again, we've got that poblano turning into ancho, bola, cascabel. And then you will also notice that even when you think you might know something, you might find that you go into another region, and regionally, they might call a chili by what you think by a different name, like cascabel or bola, or you might even have another name. One of my favorite little chilies that I recently, well, not too recently, but about 2 years ago, my friend is from Sinaloa, and she introduced me to this beautiful, teeny little, powerful pepper called chiltepin. Okay, these little guys really, really pack a punch as well. Okay, they're super small. These are actually, I would call these piquin, not chiltepin, because they're a bit more oval. And these ones that are round and small are chiltepin. Okay. But again, maybe I'm wrong. Now we see another name, tipin. Okay. So there is going to be constant research in the world of chilies. There are so many chilies out there that literally it'll blow your mind, and it'll probably blow your tongue off too, because if you keep trying them, you'll eventually realize, man, there's so much to understand. Speaking of that, all right, let's pull this in case you do or do not know. The Scoville scale. All right, this is generally what is accepted and understood. Let's see if we can get a good one here. Let's see what Red Dragon seeds are saying. The Scoville. All right. This one is super intense. This is, it's got even the official Guinness Book of Records. Okay. Oh yeah. I don't know if you know, but this recently, Pepper X, which I think is really kind of a funny name considering Twitter and X change name, that's now officially the hottest one. The U.S. has taken a kind of a crazy love and obsession with the hotter you can get. I don't know if it's a show of macho-ness or what, but people love it. You've got Trinidad Scorpion chocolate, which are also kind of similar to the looks very similar to the habanero. There's a habanero chocolate habanero, which I had the privilege of tasting earlier this year. It was fire. It was gorgeous. It was maroon in color. It had beautiful notes. Not for the lighthearted. But then we go down. We're going in. You think you might know or think you can do heat. Jalapeno. Look where the jalapeno falls, right? Where did that jalapeno go? We know that the jalapenos, I mean, those are like almost like, sometimes they're like as sweet as a bell pepper these days. There's like almost no fire. And you can see that it's going to range anywhere from 2,500 to 8,000. Again, those are 8,000 Scoville units. Okay. And then of course, down below, we've got some of our little babies here, chocolate sweet pepper, a gypsy pepper. I've never even heard of the tangerine dream. There's going to be a lot of things. We've got the pepperoncinis, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. And think about like, where's the Hatch bell pepper, hailing from New Mexico. We've got the Aleppo pepper here from Syria. And if this doesn't give you an indicator of how far and wide the chili has gone and traveled, I don't know what else does. You think about, well, I think I just saw one here. We've got the Jawala hot finger coming in India. Black pearl, never heard of that. Again, like I said, the manzano, which is fantastic. That thing is very, very spicy as well, and actually has dark black seeds inside of it. One thing to take note whenever you're working with chilies, I'll drop this into the chat box right now. Whenever you're working with chilies, please do take note and care for any potential issue, right? We know that we should never be touching our face or, using the restroom when we're working with products, right? Without washing our hands. Okay. But life happens, some things happen. And I will tell you this much, if you are prepping chilies without using gloves, okay, and even if you've rinsed your hands, you've got a little bit of that essential oil, capsaicin, okay, capsicum, and boom, eyes burning, okay. You use the bathroom, problem, alert, fire, 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 okay. So do be careful, okay, whenever you're prepping and working with chilies, okay. Just take note. Even some people, if you're prepping a bunch, might wear goggles because your knife is going and seeds are flying. Okay. Yeah, I'm dead serious. You think I'm kidding? I've had experiences. Everybody has. And if you don't have a fire chili story, you probably haven't really been prepping like a mad person yet. All righty. That's enough a little bit about chilies. There's still so much to tell you about. I'm going to hop into the slideshow so we can kind of knock out some of that important information. But I do want you to think about this. Guess what? Mexico, and we think about, what Spain brought over to Mexico. Remember, we learned about this last week, and back first, right? Corn. Where would corn be? Would it be showing up in Spain without massive trade? No. Tomatoes, chilies. Guess what? Guess what came over? Pork, pigs. Pigs came from Spain, came from Europe over to Mexico. Before Mexico and the Americas did not have pigs. There was turkey, there was venison, deer. It was a completely different group of animals coming around, different vegetables growing, okay? Beans, et cetera, et cetera. So let me pull this up and we're gonna fly through some of this stuff. Like I said, we're just making tamales and mole, so luckily recipes aren't gonna take a ton of time this week. I'm not going to cover chile rellenos because they are optional, and the recipe is super straightforward. And again, like I said, that's optional. I can cover it in study hall. We'll blow through it. it's nothing too complicated. You guys are at the end of the program. It's not a big concern. There's too much other good stuff to talk about this week. All righty, let us pop on in. Where the heck are we? There we go. All right. Ooh, let me catch my breath for a second. I got so excited. All righty. And there's going to be some stuff that I just skip over in the slideshow because, we don't need to go into that, all of it. But let's hop on in. So, first of all, looking at, I didn't do I do justice. I can't not, sorry. I love pulling this in, right? Because people, geography, right? I cannot tell you how much I have learned by personally living and working in other countries, from history to culture to geography, that I didn't know beforehand. All right. And it's taken me living in places to really have this great grasp on geography and culture. It didn't just come from anything else other than actually living in these countries. Okay. And taking dives in, right? If you think about this, right, we've got United States, right? California, right? This is all Baja California. Okay. You've got all the way over here to Miami, Cuba, right? We've got the Gulf of Mexico, the Caribbean. This is the Yucatan, Quintana Roo. This is where I live, over here, Playa del Carmen, just about an hour south of Cancun in Quintana Roo. Okay, we've got a border with Belize, Guatemala. Okay, you've got the Yucatan, Merida, very rich history. You've got Mayan cuisine. We're going to talk about Mayans, Aztecs, Incans, and dive a bit into the culture and history there. But incredible food. I know you all made sikilpak in the first weeks of class. I had my first real sikilpak about 2 months ago in the city of Valladolid, and I was totally blown away, along with a tamal that I had never even heard of, which was full of pumpkin seeds and hard-boiled eggs and served with a really gentle tomato sauce. Not a spicy tomato sauce, but a really soft, mellow tomato sauce that I thought, am I in Italy? Because we think about Mexican cuisine and fire and heat and spice. And guess what? No, soft, beautiful tomato sauces are there too, right? We're talking about origin of chilies and tomatoes, that it would put some of Italian tomato sauces to shame, which I think is pretty great. So then we're getting down here, you get Chiapas Tabasco, right? That classic sauce, right? Oaxaca, this is the land of moles, the land of 7 moles. There are far many moles than just 7, but 7 is kind of the classic that we go to. We could talk about tamales. There's going to be 1,000 variations, not 1,000, but a couple hundred variations of tamales, okay? Not to mention salsas as well. Puebla as well, which has a huge culinary background. Mexico City being in a valley here. You've got Jalisco and Guadalajara, the land of tequila. All right, moving up farther north, we've got Monterrey and Nuevo Leon, mountainous region. You've got kind of what we think of, keep going, right? We're all the way up. Sonora, Southwest cuisine, right? When we think about Tex-Mex, Southwest, this whole kind of region. Well, guess what? This, first of all, was Mexico before we talked about the Louisiana Purchase, et cetera, et cetera. But we think about that cuisine, and that really kind of hails from this region, a bit more mountainous, desert. We think about chili. What is chili? Well, let's talk about chili. Does chili have beans, or is chili made out of chilies? Right? All right. Baja California actually has a wonderful, not surprising, right? We know California has a huge amount of wine. Well, guess what? If we just kept going south, Do we think there's going to be some great wine coming from this region as well? Indeedly do, right? All right, then let's look at simply the fact of how much coast. There's a lot of ceviche. There's a lot of coast coming in, okay? A lot of mariscos, seafood, shellfish, okay? So let's get back into this and going through. So, of course, insanely rich history. You know, from I can never pronounce the third one here. We've got Olmec, Maya, and Teotihuacan, Toltec, Aztec. Okay, we think about again historians talking about original Mayan cuisine, and that goes into that idea of sikilpak, as well as chia seeds. You know, I think it's always funny when we get these. You know, if you grew up in the 80s, 70s, and 80s, you knew about chia, right? Chia pets, which were like little ceramic things that you would grow hair, green hair on. That was a chia pet. Okay. And then, you know, we're looking 30 years later and chia is this power source. Well, guess what? Let's go back to the Mayans. Mayans were using chia seeds as a massive fuel. Chia seed itself can hold up to about 12 times the amount of water of its own weight. So you talk about hydration. We're talking about super hot areas. Guess what? You're going to soak those chia seeds, all right, in water. You take that down, boom, now you are hydrated. You don't need to drink as much water because that chia seed has become inflated with water and hydration, and now you've just consumed that. Fills you up, keeps you hydrated. I'm not so sure about the filling you up part. Never worked for me, but that's just me. Hydrated, I'll give it to them, but filling me up never did the trick for me. Okay. Now, we look at traditionally a hunter and gatherer society, which we see time and time again. As I mentioned, we had a lot of turkeys, but there were more, you know, deer and venison coming through as well. And of course, a huge focus on agriculture, beans, corns, chilies, chocolate, 15th century Spanish colonization, right? 1521 invasion of Mexico. Side note, I want to make sure that everybody knows Cinco de Mayo, oftentimes celebrated in the US as what people think is Mexican Independence Day. That is not true. Mexican Independence Day is the 15th, 16th, and that is actually when Independence Day happens. Cinco de Mayo was one of the many battles. That's it, okay? It's not Mexican Independence Day. It's not the 4th of July. That is September 15th, 16th. Another really important fact and date that's coming up is we think about Halloween in the U.S. Well, they have Dia de los Muertos in Mexico that hails on November 1st, right? So if you go into this idea of All Hallows Eve, spirits, all of that's coming around, and that is a really interesting holiday in which you set out an altar. You might put out photos of or write the name of deceased loved ones, and you actually put out foods or drinks that they loved, inviting them back into this world. I'm getting shivers thinking about it. You know, it's there's so much culture and rich history within Mexico and Mexican culture. Of course, we get the talk about the Columbian Exchange, right, where we talked about its people, its livestock, its disease, its religion. Okay. It is a lot of nastiness and a lot of incredible things that took place as well. Okay. Mexico brought, you know, we've got the inclusion of the chicken, pigs. Remember, again, wheat wasn't a thing going down in the Americas. Okay. Wheat was not here. It was corn. We're corn land. Okay. Also different other four-legged animals, cows, sheep, goats, et cetera, et cetera. This was all a part of that. I am not going to go into all of these regions. I will put this in the instructor's announcement section if you'd like to go into a deeper dive. I've kind of covered a bit of this. As we see the north, right? Baja, Sonora, Chihuahua. Maybe you think about Chihuahua cheese, right? Maybe you think of where we've got machaca, which is dried carne seca, okay, dried beef. We've got fajitas. You have a lot of cabrito, all different types of cheeses. Side note, there was a huge random group of Mennonites that came in from the US down into Mexico at one point, and then Mennonite cheese kind of became a thing as well. in Mexico. You also have queso de bola, which is essentially like a Gouda cheese that came in from the Dutch. You've got queso Oaxaca, which is almost like not the same, but it is a melting cheese. Okay, similar could it's if you remember string cheese from back in the day, queso Oaxaca is like that, where it's string, it's pullable, it's really meltable. Okay, it's not a fresh or a dried or a salted cheese or a crumbly cheese. It's a melting cheese. Okay, or a grilling cheese. You've got the Pacific Northcoast, again, falling in here from the land of, tequila, Guadalajara, birria, right? Maybe you've heard of that big, quesabirria or birria ramen that's been all over Instagram, right? And again, Jalisco with tequila. Now, if we talk about tequila, we can't not, and we talk about the agave plant. We also must be thinking about mezcal. Mezcal has really taken a huge leap into the beverage world. That's on par with a huge demand for it. It's kind of like a whiskey or a scotch in that world. There's some smoky ones. Mezcal is probably one of my hands down favorite distilled beverages out there. It can be strong. It can be like moonshine, but the good stuff is really, really quite fantastic. We've got Jalisco being known for tequila, and just like we have denominations and protected areas, how it can be produced, the quantity and the source of the plant to be made, just like in other regions for wine or champagne or Kentucky bourbon, right? Or scotch for that matter. Okay. Continuing on, we've got again more of the Bajío, of course, the southern Pacific coast as well. And as I mentioned, we hop into this world of the moles, all right? And moles. Moles can, the one we're going to be making is a good example of a mole, but moles can really take many different forms, not only from the fact of the color, whether it's a yellow mole, a green mole, a dark, almost black, a brown one, a red one, different textures, thicknesses, the herbs that we use or lack thereof, the chocolate that you use, the chili that you use, but also the thickener or the nut or the seed. Moles can have upwards of 30 plus ingredients going in. Okay. Are you using peanuts, or are you using toasted tortillas? Are you using bread, or are you using leftover bolillos? Are we using Maria cookies? Okay. Which are just like kind of like a little basic biscuit. What are you using as that thickener? Again, are we using ground pepitas, right? Are we using almonds, cinnamon, cloves? How is that getting flavored? I always think this is kind of interesting that they call this the South, because this little section, I mean, this seems like the South to me, but everybody's got their idea of what's North, East, South, and West. I think that seems like that's the East, but hey, who am I? I'm not a geographer. I'm just a chef, right? But again, we've got a huge influence, and we also think about Veracruz, which is right here in the Caribbean influence, right? You've got when we look at the cuisine of Veracruz, you have olives, you have capers. It's definitely has a Mediterranean kind of feel to it. Dishes and there are very different. You also have a West African and Cuban influence as well coming into Tabasco and this Caribbean region here. Okay. Now we hop into some of these ingredients, thinking about aguacates, right? Nopales or cactus leaves, which are very rich in fiber, so high in fiber. They're consumed frequently, whether they're, they've got also kind of that the slimy texture that people associate with okra. Nopales or cactus leaves also have this. So there's a certain way of cooking it, which that is either involves like blanching it or slow cooking it to extract some of that sliminess. But you can eat this chilled as a salad. It can be turned into tacos, fillings, as a side, as a component of many different soups, et cetera, et cetera. Tomatillos, which are going to be part of the nightshade family, green, and with those husks around, you can make your salsa verdes out of that. Banana leaves, plátano leaves, right? You've got chayote. Chayote can be sauteed. It can be put into stews. It can be grated and used fresh. It can be turned into little fritters. You've got jicama, cucumber, and mango, and those are often sold on the street, freshly sliced up, squeezed with fresh lime and a sprinkle of chili and salt. And that's your street food. I mean, street food is not just tacos, right? Or esquites or elotes. Esquites or elotes are in two forms. You either have the corn on the cob and then mayonnaise and cotija cheese and lime and chili, or in a glass, esquites, same concept. You've got cooked corn and then mixed with those same ingredients. One's on the cob, munching away. One's in vaso, a glass that you're using a spoon to dive into. Of course, you've got plantains versus regular old bananas, papayas, mangoes, pineapples, calabacin, okay, which is basically any type of squash in there. You've got epazote. Epazote is one of a unique herb that's kind of used, I think of like epazote being used oftentimes how basil is used in Italian cuisine, where you might have a sauce simmering away and you place one sprig of basil in there because it's not meant to be intense. Same with epazote. You're slowly cooking your beans and you take one sprig of epazote and it's just that note that comes in. Okay. Of course, we've got a ton of chilies and peppers, as we've talked about. Corn, maize. There's a whole big amount of information on nixtamalization and the utilization of lye and ash to make corn palatable and digestible, and for us to extract the most nutrition from corn so that it's actually edible. Lard, you'll be seeing, which is pretty interesting, but manteca, okay, coming from pigs being one of the main components for making a lot of tamales. We can, in our tamales that we're going to be making, you can either use coconut oil, it does leave a little bit of that coconut flavor, or you could use a vegetable shortening of course, tomatoes, herbs, cheese, spices. And let's continue on. Those are our nopales, our tomatillos, our tamales that are wrapped in banana leaves. We've got your chayote here. You have jicama. You have your plátanos maduros and verdes, okay? And these, you know, when they're green and starchy, you can boil those and they become like almost potato-like in a stew. You can, you know, get them really dark and ripe and they become super sweet and turned into delicious desserts. Of course, a whole variety of pumpkins and squashes, and that is that epazote, okay? Continuing on, there's a whole heck of a lot of different dishes: tortas, elotes, frijoles, totopos, sopa de arroz. You've got a lot of fruit waters that are just basically, you know, you'll take fresh fruit, puree them, sometimes add a little bit of sugar depending upon how, you know, what you're looking for in the finished product. You've got agua de Jamaica, which is from hibiscus leaves, bright red and gorgeous. You don't need to add as much sugar if you don't want to, and it can be a bit more tart and refreshing, which is the way I personally like it. I'm not a huge sugar fan, so I like my agua de Jamaica or Jamaica tea, hibiscus tea, just the leaves. You can actually take those leaves. Let me pull up a visual of what Jamaica looks like. Hibiscus. We'll put in hibiscus tea, and you're gonna see you get this beautiful, you know, red color that often is served up at Mexican restaurants. But when we see it like this, okay, it's literally petals from this flower, from the hibiscus flower, right? Dried, super tart. You can actually make your tea, and then obviously not adding sugar until at the end, right? If you want that. But those rehydrated can actually then be turned into quesadillas or different fillings. It's plant-based, super vegan friendly. It's got some meaty texture to it. When my friend told me about that, my mind was literally blown. I was like, you got to be kidding me. I've been throwing out hibiscus leaves, and I could have been eating them this whole time. Pretty unreal. Alrighty, we're about to get going on to our recipes. Tons of information here on our moles. As I mentioned, I'll put this into the instructor announcement section so you can dive deeper into this about the different moles. You've got incredible tools like the molcajete or the metate or the comal, okay? So this is your metate, okay? So you go down in Oaxaca and the women have these forearms and arms that I would not mess with them, just like some old Italian ladies working that dough. I would not mess with some of these ladies. They're literally grinding spices and corn with stone on stone, okay? Comal is essentially like if you think about a hot cast iron skillet or a plancha, the iron, the flat top, developing that color for your tortillas, and or searing a bunch of other ingredients. One of my favorite things here is the molenillo, which looks like, what does that look like? Guess what? That's an old school whisk. These little wooden rings flop around and you actually invert that. You would take the bottom part here that goes in between your hands. The bowl part is the bottom and you go like this. And that aerates and gets really beautiful frothy chocolate drinks. Of course, we've got your molcajete and then your tamale steamer. Now, thinking about culture and dining, again, we're going to take a look at that. Let's pull up our recipes for this week. All righty, we've got some excitement going on, thinking about nopales as well as jugo de Jamaica. Tons of delicious, so much, we've got tamarind, agua de tamarindo, fruit drinks, so many different lovely drinks that you can make with just taking fresh fruit and mixing that with water, blending it in the licuadora, the blender, and voila. Just a nice complement to the hot sun down there. All right, let's get into our recipes. Everybody feeling good about the material? I know that I just said a lot, but I was trying to get everything out without keeping you guys for hours. Because we've barely touched the surface, like I said. Yeah, I'm going to try and pull up some. I wish I had this one photo I want to show you about the tamal that I had. That's the really cool thing is you can wrap them in corn husks, you can wrap them in plantain leaves. I had a grilled tamal within the first year that I was down in Mexico, and I was like, wait, you're telling me you can grill these suckers too? Like, I thought it was just steaming, mostly steaming. Grilled ones. Whoa, talk about a different world. The fillings. Oh, the sauces that go with it. Oh man, I mean, salsas. If there's one thing, if you like salsas, start exploring, because the world of salsas, it will just, I mean, there's no going back once you cross over to the other side, okay? From salsa macha to everything in between. Let's get going and take a look.
Welcome to our second World Cuisines course in plant-based. So we're going to continue our world journey through many different...
Sorry about that. Add a snafu. We know this thing gets finicky sometimes. You never know what the heck it's going to do, what it's going to do. You refresh this page because it seems like it's gotten crazy already. All right. All right, we're gonna kick it off first with our mole, and then we get into our tamales. All right, just because, oopsies, I think it makes more sense that way. Because we're gonna make our mole, and then we're gonna use the mole as part of our filling for our tamales. All righty, so once this gets going, it's pretty easy breezy. All right, sourcing your ingredients, getting all your ingredients together, and once that's up, it's simmer and inactive cooking time. All right, same with your tamales. By the way, you've got to get it all that masa ready. Once you're wrapped up, sealed up, steaming. And the steaming, FYI, might take a little bit longer than you think. All right. Just a heads up. Also, holidays are oftentimes often the time of making tamales, and it is a family effort, and you've got multiple stages. There's one person who's spreading the masa on your corn husk, the next person is filling, the next person's tying, and the next one's placing it in the steamer basket. Because you're usually not just making 3 tamales, you're making 30 or 300, okay? And you've got a huge steamer, and you're doing different fillings, different salsas, because everybody's going to be eating and maxing out on some tamales. All right, so let's hop into our mole. You're going to take some olive oil. You could use a neutral oil as well. That'll do the job. You need a white onion or a Spanish onion, yellow onion. I would not use a red onion. Red onions are not going to be used in this. Just go for a white or yellow onion here. Tomato paste, pepitas, also known as pumpkin seeds, almonds toasted and chopped, garlic cloves minced, your dried guajillo chilies, which are going to remove the stems and the seeds and cut those into strips. Again, this is a different way of making mole. I've learned many different variations. This is another one. You do get good results here. It's a little bit different than ways that I've made it before. Next, you're going to have your dried ancho chilies. Again, stems and seeds removed and cut into strips. Depending upon the turnover on your chilies, again, this is another thing that I learned. Being, you can find really dry chilies, but if you go to a Hispanic market where there's a lot of turnover, your chilies, or like down in Mexico, I was just flabbergasted by the fact of how pliable and soft the dried chilies were. I was like, this is not the dried chili that I knew about, right? That they were dry, and who knows when the last time they had been purchased and been sitting there. Freshly dried chilies are a lot more pliable and easier to work with. So just a heads up as well, if you have a Mexican market where you can get them where you're going to have more turnover, you'll get a fresher product. All righty, continuing on. Cumin, coriander, both of those ground, oregano, dried, a bay leaf, whole cloves, 1 cinnamon stick, a bit of veggie stock, as well. You've got a can of chipotle in adobo sauce is going to add a little bit of smokiness to it. You've got raisins coming in, Mexican dark chocolate. Kind of the most famous one is called Abuela. I'll show you a visual of that. If you cannot get your hands on Mexican dark chocolate, and that's actually chocolate's often used for making chocolate, like a chocolate drink. Any dark chocolate will do. Don't try to avoid a milk chocolate. It's just gonna have too much sugar, but chocolate will do the trick, okay? Salt and black pepper.
I'm sorry, so you said if we can't find the Mexican dark chocolate, use what? Or just dark chocolate?
Just a dark chocolate will do the trick.
Oh.
Just don't use milk chocolate. Milk chocolate, it's not going to bring the chocolate game to the table that we want it. Milk chocolate's going to be too sweet. It's not going to have enough of the chocolate flavor. You want to use a dark chocolate there. I would hit at least a 70%. 65. All right. All right. So you are going to take sauce pot, right? Medium, larger, medium size. Get that oil in the pan over medium high heat and add your onion. Get that cooking down, translucent, add your tomato paste, right? We know we cook out tomato paste so we can get a deeper color, a richer flavor profile. Again, it says golden hue. I think that's kind of a misleading. You want it to deepen. I think like brick red, getting that darker is what we want to look. You don't want it to get, it's going to darken up. All right. Pull that sweetness out of there. Cut that acidity out of there. That sharpness, that rawness. All right. That's what we want to cook out. Right. Next, you're going to add your pepitas, your almonds, your garlic. Okay. You're going to pull down that heat. Right. You don't want your garlic burning. Take note of that. You don't want to burn. Okay. Next, you're going to add your dried cut chilies. Okay. That's your, and if you can't say, if you can't find, ancho, but you could find guajillo, or you could find ancho and you couldn't find guajillo. Just do it. All right. Maybe you can find it, those are pretty. Guajillo is not that spicy. Ancho has more smokiness and a bit more spice to it. Guajillo is often used more for color. It's softer. It's really not that spicy. Okay. So just know that if you're also looking for like a less spicy version, and again, maybe you only find the guajillo, or you're really heat sensitive, just get guajillos. Is it going to be the exact same thing as what your classmate is making? No, but is it going to be the concept of mole? Yes. All right. The flavor profile is going to be a little bit different, but those will do the tricks. Okay. Next, you are going to add those chilies to the mixture. If you want a little kick, you could put a chili audible in there as well. Just one, or go for more if you want. You're going to kick that up. You're going to cook that for a few minutes, and the chilies are going to soften down a little bit. Okay. Then you're going to add in your cumin, your coriander, your oregano, your bay leaf, your cinnamon stick, add the stock, your chipotles with adobo sauce, boom, and your raisins. Okay. Bring that to a low boil. Now, I will say, if you use a really big stock pot here, you might evaporate too quickly. Okay. And reduce down too quickly. I would use a smaller sauce pot. I wouldn't go for a big old stock pot. It says sauce pot, and I've seen students in the past using huge stock pots or just really big open pots, and it just gets evaporated too quickly. You're reducing it down. It's reducing too quickly, and you get a really thick paste. You should have a thick paste, but you can run that risk, or just add a little bit more water if you notice that. Okay. Continuing on, once you've got everything going in, you're going to bring that to a low boil. You reduce that heat, simmer covered, right, for 30 to 35 minutes. You don't want that uncovered because you're just going to lose too much of that moisture. All right. Pull from the heat and add your chocolate. You can just do a rough chop on that chocolate, throw it in. The chocolate's going to melt, stir it in to incorporate. You could grate it, you could chop it. Either way, it's going in and it's getting melted. Okay. Extract that cinnamon stick and the bay leaf, because you don't want, you're not going to blend that up, and you're going to puree into smooth. Okay. If the sauce is thick, again, add a little bit more of that veg stock or water, or if you're planning on doing something take a chili and soak that, people oftentimes throw out water that you've soaked chilies in. Well, guess what? That's full of flavor. You can use a little bit of that in there too. And then, of course, season the taste with salt and pepper. And then if you're not going to use it immediately, you do want to rapidly cool that, make a quick ice bath, pull that temp down, label date, store in the fridge. All right. If you are going in to the next stage, you are going to prep your filling. Your filling is going to be, where the heck are we? Yeah, your filling, red bell peppers and thinly sliced onions. Okay. I actually love the thought of doing mushrooms in here as well. I had a student in the past who had allergy to red bell peppers, and they did mushrooms. Yeah, you will notice that Mexican chocolate has a totally different flavor. You're completely right about that, Antonio. So once you've got your mole made, okay, I'm just going to we're going to prep the filling, okay? In a saute pan, you're going to get some oil in the pan, get that shimmering, and you're going to saute your onions and bell peppers, add a little bit of your mole to get that coated, and then remove from the heat and reserve. All right, now your filling is ready. Obviously, fillings can run the gamut from cheese to rajas, which are poblano peppers that have been roasted, peeled, and sliced, to chicken. Mole, classic is chicken instead of mole. Chicken instead of peppers and onions with mole, and served in the center, right? So next up, what are we going to do? We're going to prep your corn husks. All right. You're going to take your a package of corn husks, dried corn husks. Oftentimes those packages have holes in it, so you might have some dust, a little debris. Clean those off. You can wipe that off with a wet cloth, but also you're going to submerge those fully in cold water. Okay, put a weight on top of it, keep them submerged, otherwise they're going to float right over. And you can even put that into the fridge if you need to, and want it in for at least 2 hours or overnight. They're going to get nice and soft, and they're going to be able to you're going to be able to fill that and work with it. Otherwise, it's going to be brittle and they're going to break. Okay. And they're going to be frustrating to work with. All right. All right. You've got your filling made. Next up, we've got your dough itself. All right. Now, vegetable shortening or coconut oil. As I mentioned, coconut oil is going to have a different flavor profile. Some people are like, ooh, I did not like that. Some people really into it. So I think based on your own knowledge and preference, if you love coconut oil, rock it out. If you don't want to have vegetable oil, vegetable shortening because you think it's not good for me and I don't want it, don't use it. I will say that I do see some better, fluffier results from the vegetable shortening simply because of the structure of vegetable shortening. Okay. And it was designed as a replacement for lard. Okay. And so structurally, you think about Crisco, right? Veg shortening. It is solid, right? At room temp, depending upon where you are, your coconut oil may or may not be solid at room temp, right? So if it's liquid, you're not going to be getting that fluffy height. All right. So just something to be on the lookout for. You're going to take your veg shortening or your coconut oil, salt, a bit of baking powder, your masa harina, and a bit of vegetable stock. Now, could you use water? Yes. Is that less flavor? Yes. Okay. Oftentimes you're using, like I said, traditionally you might be using vegetable or chicken stock. I've actually seen people using bouillon, like a powder for a flavoring agent, and lard. This is all giving flavor to the masa. Okay. Taste your masa. Also make sure you've got enough salt in there so that it's got some good flavor to it as well. Or that your vegetable stock, you don't want it to be super salty, but have a little salinity in there so that you're giving some extra boost to that flavor. And again, a more neutral vegetable stock. You don't want to make a vegetable stock that's like full of cabbage or anything. It's going to totally transform your flavor profile. Go nice and neutral. All right. Now, you're going to stir together your baking powder, your masa harina, right? And that is just, you're going to get that nice and combine your dry ingredients, okay? Next, using a stand mixer with a paddle attachment or wooden spoon by hand, all right? You're going to work those muscles again, and you're going to cream the shortening on high speed until it gets light and fluffy. That's why I do suggest using shortening or a cooler kitchen for your coconut oil so that it doesn't become liquid. All right. Again, these are just things that I'm telling you that will hopefully ease your process of masa making. Okay. Now, obviously, you're going to get that fluffy. It's going to take about 2 minutes. But if you're using a machine and if you're doing it by hand, probably going to take 5 to depending upon how strong you are and how tired you get. All right. Okay. Next, you're going to add that masa mixture gradually. Okay. Bit by bit. You don't want to dump the whole thing in. If you do, it's just gonna be pain. All right. And take a lot more frustration. All right. So gradually add that, get it incorporated. You're going to slowly beat in that vegetable broth and you get that to a kind of fluffy mashed potato consistency. You don't want it wet and liquidy. You don't want it dry. You want some fluff to that. Okay. And then now we're ready. Okay. You're going to pull out your corn husks. Okay. You're going to, dry that off a little bit. You're going to put the corn husk with your rough side up on a work surface and get about 1/4 cup. Okay. You're not making huge tamales. You're making fairly small ones. Okay. Now, the biggest trick here, and again, you're going to have to try and make, I've seen so many different unique techniques from utilizing a bench scraper to a plastering tools to spreading that masa on. Okay. Lots of different techniques out there. Take a look around the world. You're going to see. But What you don't want is you don't want to just, put it on and then stuff your filling and wrap it and think that it's going to come out great. It's not. You got to be thinking about how much of the masa have I actually spread on this. Think about like when you're making sushi, right? Is your filling falling out? Is it evenly encased? You want to get the filling encased. That's ideal, right? You want to get that masa around your filling so that when you're wrapping and folding, you basically are making up this little cute little package. All right. So you're going to spread about a quarter of a cup of the dough into about a cornicle and leave a little bit of space around the other sides. Okay. But you do want to make sure that you're getting that fairly covered, and then take a little bit of your spilling, about 2 tablespoons. Maybe you need to go less, okay? Give or take, right? Sometimes we think 2 tablespoons. It's kind of hard to guesstimate 2 tablespoons when you've got onions and peppers that are this long. Is 2 tablespoons one pepper and 2 onions? Maybe that's what about that would amount to. Again, thinking about your filling and your ratio there. All right. And then you're going to basically, once you've got that filled it in, fold the left and the right sides up, fold it down the bottom, and take one of your corn husks and make some strips out of that. And then you're going to tie it around. Okay. Don't tie it so tightly that it can't expand, because remember, we're going to be steaming these, so that masa is going to grow. But you also don't want it so loose that they're not being held together. Okay. And, remember, maybe the first one or the first 2 are not the most beautiful. You'll get the hang of it just like you did with sushi rolls. Okay. And then you're going to place those into your pan, your steaming pan. You do want to make sure that the open side is up. Okay. Otherwise, we can run out. All right. And essentially, you're just going to do that with all of the masa, get those tied up, and then we go into your steamer basket. Now, if you don't have a steamer basket in a stock pot, what can you do? A few things. One, take a piece of foil and make foil coil, and then that essentially what you don't want, whenever we think about steaming, we don't want our tamales submerged in water. Can you boil tamales? Yeah, but that's not what we're doing this time. We are steaming our tamales. So you would put your foil coil, or if you had a large enough, stock pot and a rack, a circular pie cooling rack that placed inside of that works as well. You're going to put water in the bottom. You're going to place your tamales laying upright so that they're steaming upright. They're not falling down. It's going to help with the cook time as well, and all of your content staying in. And you are going to get that going, bring that to a boil, and throw a lid on, reduce your heat, and steam. Okay. It says it can take 1.25 hours. It can also take up to 2 hours. All right. Just letting you know. You do need to make sure that you're monitoring your water level, just like if you're steaming anytime, going in and checking that out, right? Add a little bit of water, right? It's not that hard. You don't want to burn, and you don't want to mess up the cooking process. The whole thing is that you want to let that steam. You are cooking by steaming. Okay. And then once you're ready, once you finally are good to go, let them chill for about 5 minutes. Open one up, serve it up with some of your extra mole, sprinkle it down with a little bit of sesame seeds, and you are good to go. Yes, you got it. So let me pull this up really quickly, and I will show you what that Mexican chocolate that's kind of pretty classic that you can find in a lot of places. That way you at least have a visual clue. Otherwise, like I said, any chocolate will do, any dark chocolate will do the trick. All right. This is that chocolate. You'll see it. Abuelita, little grandma, is hanging around. And it's kind of cool. It comes in these little, you can break these pieces off. Okay. And this is what's you can find quite frequently. It is definitely a different flavor. It has sweetness coming in as well as some spices. But you can make hot chocolate from it and you can make mole from it. Yeah, and you can get it at Walmart. Exactly. Oh, also, if you're looking for masa harina, this is the most common brand that you'll see. I mean, this has been around, this one, Maseca. All right. Masa harina, but you can also, Bob's Red Mill, masa harina there as well. Lots of different variations out there. Apparently, even Quaker has one. So, class, yep, international aisle, Walmart, Mexican store. Awesome. Thanks, Nelly. Your corn husk, your Mexican chocolate, and hit it up. Class, I hope that you have enjoyed. Sorry for keeping you late. What's new? We still have 2 more weeks coming. Reach out with questions. We'll continue to explore a little bit more on Mexican cuisine and culture on Monday in study hall. Take care, be well, and catch you on the flip side. Bye. Thanks for being here. Bye.